How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you would like to be on the program, I would be happy to have you. I want to turn our attention, before we get back to the military in China, to single cat ladies. It was something of a pejorative used on the campaign trail by J.D. Vance, and there was a lot of outrage. And at the time I said it was not necessarily something that we needed to point out, much like Kamala Harris being detached from the black community. It was just something people kind of understood. So step back for a minute and let's take Kamala Harris and the black community. In the South, where I am, if you talk to a lot of black women or black men, and you got onto the subject of politics, they may not like Donald Trump, but if you had a relationship with these people, inevitably what would come up is that Kamala Harris did not have the quote-unquote black experience. Now, that's not me saying that. I'm just relating to you conversations of black Americans. You go to South Carolina, go to Georgia, go to North Carolina. You talk to black women, go up to Michigan, talk to black women in Detroit. Kamala Harris grew up in Canada and then in Berkeley, California. Her parents were upper income. Her father descended from slave owners in Jamaica. Her mother's an Indian immigrant. She did not have the experience of a black woman in this country. She just didn't. And they knew it. And if you or I or Donald Trump were to talk about this, they'd get defensive of Kamala Harris. Because it was a conversation, whether you want to admit it or not, whether you want to say it or not, there are things you and I both understand that some people can say and other people can't, or at least are supposed to. Like, for example, the N-word, you and I are not going to say it. It's just, it is a matter of historic racial issues in this country. And so a black woman in this country can say it, but if Donald Trump goes on the campaign trail and starts talking about it, people are going black women are going to get defensive of Kamala Harris. It's going to be one of those things they can say, you can't say. And it's very similar to single cat ladies, although we all know them because single cat ladies, particularly the white ones, are the loudest, most obnoxious people on social media, and they're the ones who want to talk to the pollsters. I am firmly convinced, Ann Selzer, the pollster, it was not a hit job, and I know because someone you like said it, you believe it, that it was a hit job designed to suppress the Trump vote. It's not it at all. Ann Selzer just uses a polling methodology that's increasingly outdated, and she retired. It's a shame because she actually is one of the best pollsters in the country and one of the most intellectually honest pollsters in the country. And her last poll was a very bad poll. She had already said she was going to retire. One of the rumor mills is that she was pushed to retire because of the poll. She was already going to retire. Wasn't commonly known, but it was known among the polling community. This was it. And she went down in flames with that last poll. The reason she went down with flames with that last poll is because the single cat ladies are the ones who are most likely to want to talk to the pollster. See, this is the thing. This is how you kind of had a sense that Kamala Harris was probably not doing well, is because Democrats started positing a theory that there's a secret Kamala Harris voter out there. It used to be that there was a secret Trump voter, but now it's a secret Harris voter. No, the hell there's not. I'm sorry. Every single person I know who supported Kamala Harris was loud and proud about it. I pass by a house when I leave my office in Middle Georgia every day to go home. there's a house. It's a little Tudor-style house on a triangular-shaped lot across from our federal building. And they had Harris signs hanging off. So let me paint this picture for you. It's kind of like a rampart almost. You go past, and it is a triangular-shaped wall that's elevated with a garden at the top. And they put posts out so that they were perpendicular to the way you were driving, and you could see them head on. Harris walls. They had like 5 or 6 signs on each side, and underneath they said, obviously. As if who except the troglodytes could vote for Donald Trump. And that's the thing, is that so many of the Harris Walsh voters were so smug about it, it's impossible to have ever believed there was a secret Harris voter. The Harris voters were the most obnoxious and bullying voters out there. Like, y'all, I'll be real honest with you. I stopped going to church the last week or so before the election just because I knew it was going to be constantly, what do you think about the election? What do you think about the election? I'm not here to talk about the election. And so if I went into church, and I did, I'd go into church and I would go in through a different door and I would sit down right before worship service began, but just trying to wade through. And it's not meaning disrespecting anybody. It's just state of my life. Right around the election time, I stay away from grocery stores and places because everybody wants to talk about the election, and I'm so over the election. I never went anywhere where I didn't encounter someone who was voting for Kamala Harris, except church, thank God. But everywhere I went, with the exception of church, I always ran into someone who was going to vote for Kamala Harris, and they needed me to know they were voting for Kamala Harris. I don't need to know who you're voting for. I don't care who you're voting for. Yeah, I love you. I don't care. But I wished you wouldn't vote for it. But nonetheless, I don't really care. But there's no such thing as a secret Harris voter. And that's the thing with the single cat ladies. They're the loudest people out there, the most brazen people. My buddy Con Carroll. Con Carroll is a great guy. He's worked for Mike Lee. He writes at the Washington Examiner. He's got a new book out, Sex and the Citizen, How the Assault on Marriage is Destroying Democracy. And the single cat lady phenomenon is actually one of the perfect encapsulations of this data. Let me give you the data. Married women, majority of married women, we now have the final exit polling from Edison Research. 60% of married men voted for Donald Trump. 51% of married women voted for Donald Trump. 49% of unmarried men voted for Donald Trump, 47% for Harris. But 59% of unmarried women voted for Kamala Harris. Unmarried men actually have swung towards the Republicans by about 20 percentage points. I think it's very funny. Planned Parenthood says that since the election, their percentage of requests for vasectomies have skyrocketed like 400%. There are a lot of unmarried and some married men who are getting vasectomies. They don't want to have kids. Unmarried women are increasingly ensuring they'll never have kids. And unmarried women are the most hysterical in this country. I can't emphasize this enough to you, that married people in this country overall have better mental health. In fact, married Christians in America, and I specifically say Christians because Muslim, Jew, Buddhist, Hindu, atheist, doesn't matter. A married evangelical Bible-believing Christian, that is someone who is a regular churchgoer who believes that the Bible is the inerrant word of God. That is just, so we're dealing with definitions here so you understand it. A Bible-believing evangelical, someone who regularly goes to church, who believes the Bible is the inerrant word of God, not inspired, but actually is the inerrant word of God, that person, if married, has better mental health than any other group on the planet. Better mental health than Jews, better mental health than Muslims, better mental health than Hindus, better mental health than Zoroastrians, better mental health than secular atheists. Married Christians in this country who regularly go to church and believe the Bible are the happiest people with the best mental health. That's not in dispute, and I need you to understand, it's isn't something that comes up a lot on TV or radio, but it's not even disputable. That is the data. I'm not making that up. And it's not a coincidence that single childless cat women, or dog women for that matter, single childless women are the most neurotic, most worried, and most fretful. Who's going to take care of them? Well, I guess I'm going to take care of myself. And now I got to take care of my cat. And they're not happy people. They are not happy people. Con Carroll, in his book, Sex and the Citizen, How the Assault on Marriage is Destroying Democracy, writes in the Washington Examiner today, there's a lifestyle revolution going on in affluent liberal circles, including open marriage, polyamory, and other alternatives to monogamy that weaken the commitment of couples and undermine family bonds. And it's the Democrats that are most open to these alternate lifestyles, according to the National Opinion Research Center. Less than half of college-educated Democrats agree that sex with someone other than one's spouse is always wrong, while more than 80% of Republicans believe that it is. The vast majority of Democrats may believe that marriage is just a personal choice that doesn't affect other people. 73% told the Pew Research Center that unmarried couples do just as good a job at raising children as married couples. But decades of data show they're wrong. Children from unmarried households are less likely to finish high school, more likely to get in trouble with the law, are less likely to be employed than those from married households. Married spouses benefit from marriage. Married women are healthier, happier, and wealthier than their unmarried counterparts. The positive effects of marriage are even stronger for men who live longer on average than those who are single. And this is the wild, crazy part of all the data. If you're married, take the faith component out of it for a minute. But if you're married, you have higher income, your family's more stable, your children succeed better in life, you tend to be healthier, live longer, and are happier. Add the faith component to it. Among married couples who are happier, wealthier, healthier, and live the longest, it's people who take their faith seriously, particularly regular Christian church-going evangelicals. And now you can understand why the Democrats are so big into advancing singlehood, are so willing to denigrate marriage. If the Democrats are willing to flood this country with illegal aliens, to pad their numbers for the Electoral College, they're just as capable of trying to undermine marital integrity in this country and advance alternate lifestyles because they see that's where their growth is in the numbers. 59% of unmarried women voted Democrat. The single biggest indicator these days of who votes Democrat is a college-educated single woman. So, of course, they're going to denigrate marriage, denigrate faith, and denigrate social stability. It has nothing to do with what's good for culture and what's good for society. It has everything to do with what's good for political power for the Democrats. So, parents, they're going to be bred out of existence. They're not having kids. They're not reproducing. They're getting sterilized. You parents, when you raise your children, when you hand them over to the government school because you're not homeschooling them or sending them to a Christian Christian classical school or a charter school, when you hand them over to the state to be educated, when they come home, you need to remind them faith is real and marriage is a good thing, because they're not going to get that in the schools that the Democrats are in charge of. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. I want to take a phone call real quick. Adam's on the line. Adam, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, how's it going, Eric? Glad
Great.
to be on the show. Just one quick question. Can Lake and Riley's family sue the state of New York for not detaining Ibarra as an illegal and holding them and detaining and deporting him by protocol? That was my question.
It's a great question, and we're getting a lot of emails from people asking this question, and they can't. And here's why. The 11th Amendment to the Constitution. Here's what it says. This is the plain text of the Constitution. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced against one of the United States by citizens of another state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. In other words, citizens of one state are prohibited by the Constitution from suing another state in federal court. Now, so what do you say about when we fly to New York and we sue them there? Well, New York has a similar constitutional provision that you're not allowed to sue a state. You're not even allowed to sue the United States. You're saying, Erickson, well, people do it all the time. Yes, because the federal government and state governments have limited exceptions by which they'll allow themselves to be sued. And generally, it is for personal injury, not due to policy, but due to conduct. So, for example, you're in a wreck with a police car in a police chase. You can sue the state for the crashing into the state patrol. Or the post office is delivering mail and tears up your yard. You can sue the federal government for that. Or someone violates your individual civil rights, they can sue that. But for public policy, and this is hard for some people to want to wrap their minds around because it's a very emotional issue, and I get that. But New York having sanctuary policy is a public policy choice of the state of New York. And you cannot sue a state for its public policy choices, even if those public policy choices cause you injury. That's the 11th Amendment and the state constitutions of the several states. So, no, they can't. And we're getting a lot of questions about the death penalty as well. They didn't seek the death penalty in the Jose Ibarra case, which means it's not an option. It was taken off the table by the prosecution. And that prosecution team has been thrown out of office now by the voters, but too late for this case. Now, I need to tell you about Eden Pure and its Thunderstorm. You can get 3 of them and save $200, and they're the all-new Thunderstorm. If you go to EdenPureDeals.com today and you put in Eric3, you can get 3 Eden Pure Thunderstorms. In fact, EdenPureDeals.com is the website that you go to, if I can type, and you'll see when you load the site, you'll see host keyword, and you put in Eric3, ERICK3, the number 3, click submit. Your savings are loaded into your cart, and you see the all-new Thunderstorm OxyLeaf. It generates not just ozone to wipe out odors, but plasma to wipe out bacteria and viruses up to 99%, 99.9% of contaminants. And it also traps pollen and dust. You can get 3 of them, upstairs, downstairs, your basement, your travel bag, and it's small, packs a wallop, the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. You get 3 of them with the discount code ERIC3 at EdenPureDeals.com. You save $200. You get them for less than $200. EdenPureDeals.com, discount code ERIC3. So I got to play lawyer with you here for just a little bit. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. I was a criminal legal defender. I didn't want to be. So I should set this up for you. I was a very bad criminal defense attorney. I never wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. But when I was practicing law, the county in which I practiced, you were not allowed to practice law unless for 5 years you served as an indigent criminal defense attorney. I can tell you, I learned a lot about humanity and empathy for people in bad situations by doing it. It was good for my character to do it, even if I didn't want to do it. It really was. But I understand the legal system here in Georgia where I practice law, and I didn't like criminal law. I never wanted to go to court. I actually worked for a district attorney for a while as an intern, and I loved the prosecution side. And I'll never forget when I was a law clerk. So I was applying for law clerk jobs, and at the time, the DA paid $5.25 an hour. And I got offered a clerkship at a law firm, and it was $5.75. And I knew the lawyer of the law firm, very nice man. And I went to him and I said, look, I got to be honest with you. You're 50 cents more an hour than the DA's office. But I think I want that experience. And he kind of pushed back in his chair. He says, wait a second. Our district attorney's paying $525 a week for law clerks? I said, no, $5.25 an hour. And he fell out laughing. And he says, we may not want to hire you if you're that stupid. It's $575 a week versus $525 an hour. I wound up going to the law firm. But I did criminal indigent defense for 5 years. And so here's the thing. I'm getting a lot of questions from people nationally, not just in Georgia, about why no death penalty for Jose Ibarra in Georgia. In every state, district attorneys are of the executive branch. And district attorneys are the ones who seek not just to punish, but also how to punish. It is the judges of the judicial branch who hear the evidence, weigh the facts, often with a jury, who then render a verdict and decide on the appropriate punishment based on the verdict. In this case, the district attorney at the time that this case happened, Deborah Gonzalez, was a Soros-backed progressive. And she handed the case over to outside counsel, but the outside counsel is still bound by the policies of the district attorney's office. And that district attorney was so progressive, she would not allow them to pursue the death penalty. It wasn't something that was going to happen in Athens, Clarke County. The judge in the case cannot impose the death penalty unless it's sought and asked for by the prosecution. That's the way the system works. You may not like it, but that's the way the system works. Now, this leads to the next question some people want. Deborah Gonzalez, the hyper-woke progressive district attorney who ran her office into the ground, literally like 17 assistant district attorneys quit the office. She was such a terrible manager. She lost her election to a guy who ran an independent campaign. He collected signatures and campaigned against her, not as a Republican, but as an independent, and he won. Democrats and Republicans came together in Clarke County, Georgia, and threw Deborah Gonzalez out of office. Rightfully so. She was a terrible DA. So that raises the next question. Why then, when the incoming DA came in, why didn't he change policies and immediately ask for the death penalty? Two things. One, he's not yet been sworn into office. He's not yet the district attorney. She is. And even if he were, the case had already begun in court. They had already decided not to do a jury trial. So you'd have to redo the entire trial, get a jury and all of that for it to work. It was an impossibility. But the bottom line is he's not the district attorney yet. The woke progressive DA is still the DA. And their policy was no death penalty, so Jose Ibarra will spend the rest of his life in prison. Now, this is a problem. It's one we can't do anything about. If the DA is not going to ask for the death penalty, the judge is not allowed to impose the death penalty. And you can't appeal and ask the Supreme Court of Georgia or the Court of Appeals in Georgia to impose a death penalty, because when you appeal, you don't wind up in a worse predicament. The problem, though, is that Jose Ibarra is a member of that Venezuelan gang. So now he's going to go into state prison in Georgia with ties to a very violent Venezuelan gang and begin to network with the populations of the prison. The state is going to have to be very, very careful about how it proceeds with his prison sentence. But he's going away for the rest of his life with no opportunity for parole in the state of Georgia. And that in and of itself is a good thing, that he's going to be off the streets for the rest of his life. He's not going to get to go back to Venezuela. He's not going to be deported. he's going to be put in prison. He was convicted of felony murder, malice murder, kidnapping with bodily injury, aggravated assault with intent to rape, aggravated battery, hindering a 911 call, and tampering with evidence. He was also found guilty of a peeping Tom charge. He waived his right to a jury. It's a horrible case. By the way, do not blame the special prosecutor for the setup of this case. The special prosecutor prosecuted it because the incompetent district attorney was at least smart enough to pass it off, hoping that by passing it off, she could show herself to be tough and win re-election. It didn't help. But the special prosecutor, her hands were kind of tied as well. It's just a sad case. What's worse is that it was so preventable. That's the thing that just makes me angry about the case and why so many of you are angry. Laken Riley should still be alive. She should be alive because the President of the United States of America should prioritize our national sovereignty by securing our border. And instead, Jose Ibarra came into this country illegally and was allowed in. He went to New York. New York didn't detain him. New York didn't do much anything. He was arrested in New York, let go, and made his way to Georgia, where his brother was. And he murdered Laken Riley. Now, I want you also to know that Athens, Clark County, Georgia, will deny it until they're blue in the face, but Athens, Clark County, Georgia has put in place sanctuary city policies. The local police are willing to tell you all about it. Local mayor and county commission there deny it till they're blue in the face. They've done everything possible to turn Clark County into a sanctuary county. It's a combined city-county government. When they tell you they're not a sanctuary city, you need to understand they're lying to cover themselves. They are. So Jose Ibarra went from one illegal immigrant-friendly place to another and wound up murdering a law-abiding citizen of the United States of America in the state of Georgia, Laken Riley. He should have never been here. And he'll be in jail for the rest of his life. And she's not alone in this. She's not the only victim of an illegal alien in the United States who came here because of the Biden policies. And it's unfair. And to the extent presidents affect you on a daily basis, this is it. Presidents in Congress, they don't really affect you on a regular daily basis. They don't. But things like this do affect you from the federal level. The weakness on border policy, among other things, the terrible weakness on border policy that this administration has put into place. And we've got just over 2 months left before it all goes away. On January 20th, today is November 20th. In 2 months, Donald Trump will take the oath of office and return to the presidency and bring hell with him for illegal aliens who are criminal agents in this country. Yeah, I had an exchange with Jake Tapper this morning. I don't think he'll mind me saying this. I'm sure he won't. Jake and I have a great relationship, known him for a long time. And he and Scott Jennings, I pledged you yesterday the exchange that he and Scott Jennings had about migrant workers in this country. And yes, Jake's right. The data shows in this country the majority of the people who are picking the crops are illegal aliens. In fact, the data suggests strongly that many of the people who come into this country legally on a temporary agriculture worker visa actually are not here legally and have forged documents. That's what the data suggests. But I'll tell you, and the reason he reached out to me is a Twitter thread I put up yesterday about his and Scott Jennings' exchange. I've had a lot of farmers call me call the show and email me. I've had them from Oklahoma, I've had them from Illinois. I've had them from Ohio. I've had them from Florida and Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. I've had a lot of farmers reach out. And there's one other state in there. And all of them said to a person that it is a talking point and a data point that the majority of ag workers in the fields in this country are illegal, and they don't believe it. That in their fields and in their farms, they actually use the temporary worker program, and they are vetted. In fact, they have inspectors who come to their farms and inspect to make sure that they're not using illegal aliens. They said certainly in California and places like that, they are, because the states don't inspect. And one of the farmers from just outside of Dayton, Ohio, sent me a link to a piece, said the Biden administration last year reduced the number of farm inspections from over 5,000 a year to less than 900 a year. Essentially, the Biden administration wanted hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil as the policy. They did not want to inspect a farm to see if there are illegals working. They wanted the illegals to work. And the Democrats and much of the media are convinced that without the illegal aliens, the farm industry will collapse. And all of these farmers who reached out to me from all these states says that is not true at all. It is not true at all. In fact, the flood of illegal immigrants has disincentivized a temporary program in this country, and that temporary program could be revitalized if we got rid of the illegal aliens. It would actually help us, and people would be documented. And, you know, that is the punchline to all of this for me, is how well documented all these people are who the media insists must be called undocumented immigrants instead of illegal immigrants. We know very well how many of them are here and where they're working. At least we claim to. But these farmers, all of them said they totally support mass deportations because, one, they're going to go after the criminals first. Two, then they're going to find the missing children. And then three, they're not coming for the people who pick the crops. And to the extent they are, there's an existing program all these people can apply for and come back. It's not going to be a burden. And yet the media talking point is going to be this massive burden. I'll believe it when I see it. What I see right now is that there is a dead girl in Athens, Georgia, because this administration chose not to secure the border, because they chose to do backdoor in-runs around existing American law, and they didn't respect the American law that we had or the border of the United States. And more than one person has been killed because of those policies, and their blood is on Joe Biden's hands. But he doesn't even know it. He's too mentally incompetent to know. Now, before I get out of here, I need to tell you, if you're a business and you're starting a business and you're looking for a bank, can I recommend my bank, Old Glory Bank? I'm an investor in the bank. I want you to know it. My use of Old Glory Bank as a customer pre-exists them being an advertiser. In fact, I lobbied for them to advertise on my show. They're chartered in Oklahoma, but they're a nationwide bank. They do online checking and savings for individuals and businesses, custodial accounts for your kids. They have great interest rates. They've got a great app. I'm a big believer in Old Glory Bank. They're a bank started by conservatives who saw that banking trends happen around the country, where progressives buy into banks and then start using the leverage of the bank to say to the gun store, we're sorry, we can't do business with you anymore because you sell guns. Or to tell the person who uses their debit card to buy a gun, we're sorry, you can't buy that gun with your debit card. And Old Glory Bank come up and say, you know what, we're going to be conservative by conservatives for conservatives. We're going to support the Second Amendment. We're going to support businesses. And even though we're online banking, we're going to do unique services for businesses where we'll be able to help them with loans. We'll send people to them. We'll get to know the business. We'll build a relationship, and they do it. And I've sent multiple businesses to them. I've got accounts with them. I began investing in the bank as well. I believe in them, and you will too. OldGloryBank.com. You can get your entire account set up online today at OldGloryBank.com. OldGloryBank.com. You can get an account for your kids. You can get no-fee checking, no-fee savings. That's what I have. You got great interest rates. You can build a relationship with them, do mortgages. You can do car loans. You can do business loans. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Howdy. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, well, it is too late for you to call in the show, so, well, never mind. I gotta continue to laugh at the left and how they continue to do things that then set the mood for the Republicans. I say all the time, precedent matters. And the Democrats, after Donald Trump lost in 2020, decided to get rid of the Emergency Powers Act from the 1970s that essentially says a president can declare something an emergency and then use the military and mobilizing entire federal government to fight that emergency. Gives the president extremely broad powers. And after Trump lost in 2020, Democrats led by Congressman McGovern of Massachusetts said, we got to get rid of this law. We got to get rid of this law. What happens if we ever get a Trump again? But then the environmentalists swooped in and said, no, you can't get rid of this law because we got to have Joe Biden declare a climate emergency. Joe Biden needs to declare a climate emergency. So they ignored McGovern. They canceled the law. And they canceled repeal of the law. Now Donald Trump's going to use the law for a border emergency so he can use the military to help round up. Look, you guys are the ones who laid out the thought process of the path and then chose not to get rid of the law. Donald Trump gets to use the law. It's hilarious. By the way, at the end of the show, there is some breaking news. Sarah McBride of Delaware says she will use the men's restroom on Capitol Hill. I will follow the rules as outlined by Speaker Johnson, even if I disagree with them. There are unisex bathrooms on Capitol Hill, but Sarah McBride, who is biologically male, is going to use the men's bathroom, and that's fine. Sarah McBride is a man. She is actually a he. So I'm okay with this. He says this effort to distract from the real issues facing this country hasn't distracted me over the last several days as I've remained hard at work preparing to represent the greatest state of the union come January. Okay, first of all, that's a lie. Delaware is not the greatest state of the union, but nonetheless, God bless him for that. If Sarah McBride lived his life and didn't try to define himself by his transition, which he's done, I doubt anything would come of this. But he actually is the one who made a big deal out of it, not Nancy Mace. And now he will use the men's bathroom, and he is biologically a man, even if he has done a lot of surgery and stuff to make himself look like a woman. This is perfect solution.